Just having you here makes our ceremony look cheap, she spat at me. There I was, a high school dropout, invited to the wedding of a friend who had made it big. It was my first time at such a fancy, formal event, and I was a bit nervous. And there was my friend's bride, hurling insults at me. Could you, the uneducated trash, cut ties with my husband? Huh, is that okay? You're the one who said we should cut ties. I'm washing my hands of whatever happens from here on out. She, who could only judge people by their education or job titles at face value, probably had no idea who a guy like me, a middle school dropout, really was. I'm Rick. Just a humble pianist, nothing much to write home about. I love interacting with all sorts of people and zip around the world. Along the way, I play my heart out on the piano, dropping by jazz bars and restaurants. Sometimes I'd even play on street pianos. That's how I made a little coin, just getting by day to day. I'm not too keen on saying this about myself, but I grew up in a relatively affluent household. The piano that's now my bread and butter, I was forced into lessons starting at the tender age of 3. In competitions mixed with adults, I was frequently awarded prizes, being called a prodigy. Looking back now, it's pretty embarrassing. But that life crumbled when I was in elementary school. Dad's business tanked, and we had to move to a tiny apartment out in the sticks. Because it was a communal housing situation, playing the piano at home was out of the question, both in terms of the noise and the rules. However, I just couldn't give it up, so I'd hit the school's music room every day after class to practice. One day, as I finished a piece, I unexpectedly heard applause. Looking towards the sound, there was a boy standing there. Moved, it seemed, almost to tears. Wow, that was the Minute Waltz by Chopin, right? Yeah, that's right. Amazing, amazing. What else can you play? Well, something like this. As I played Schumann's Traumerei, his eyes lit up even more. That's really awesome. How long have you been playing piano? Since I was 3. I started because I had to, but then I grew to love it. Do you play at home too? Nope. I live in an apartment, so I can't really play there. That's why I'm here every day. At that, he just went, I see. He seemed really impressed with my passion for the piano. I'm Tom. Can I come listen again tomorrow? I'm Rick. Sure thing. I play almost every day, so drop by if you're free. I shook hands with Tom firmly. From that day on, my solo performances had an audience. As time went by, Tom and I got closer. Turns out his dad is some big shot at the Treasury, and he's from a well-off family. Do you play an instrument, Tom? Well, I mess around with the violin a bit. That's pretty cool. The violin seems tough. Yeah, it's hard. That's why I'm not really good at it. My mom keeps scolding me, asking why I can't play it. Tom looked down sadly. But his expression changed instantly, brightening up dramatically. His face became so bright that it was hard to believe it was the same person. I was really moved by her piano playing, Rick. He leaned in close to me suddenly, being intense as he spoke. I'm really touched that my piano moved him, but I never expected this much. Hey, Tom. Yeah. How about next time we play together? My piano and your violin. When I asked for a session, his face fell a bit. Not until my violin is good enough for your piano. Okay. All right then. Let's practice together for the next 3 years in middle school. Okay. Tom seemed to hesitate with his words. At that time, I didn't think much of it, but just a few days later, I learned what he meant directly from him. What? You're taking exams for a school far away? Yeah, so it looks like we won't be able to practice together. Sorry. That's okay. I mean, you've got dreams too, right? Dreams. Actually, my dream just recently. Never mind. Tom started to say something but then stopped himself. Respecting his feelings, I didn't ask any further. Instead, I extended my pinky finger. Pinky, swear. No matter how late it is, we've got to play together. You bet. Tom extended his pinky too. We linked them, sealing our promise for a future session. I'll send you letters, Tom. I didn't know about Tom, but as for me, I didn't have a cell phone and couldn't afford to waste money on home phone calls. So, I decided to send letters, a relatively cheap way to keep in touch. Yeah, I'll be waiting. Our paths diverged, and I ended up going to the local public middle school in my hometown. I didn't join any clubs. Instead, I spent all my after-school hours playing the piano in the music room. I was determined not to fall behind Tom, who I was sure would level up in his absence. My passion for improving my performance was burning strong, but that was inside. In contrast to my inner fire and the hot summer temperatures of our 8th grade year, an incident that happened was chilling. Dad. My mom and I watched as my father received an examination in the hospital bed. He had collapsed at work, and after getting the call, I left school early to rush over. He barely responded to our calls, extremely weak. It was hard to tell if he had any strength left. He'll need to stay in the hospital for a while to be observed. That's what the doctor said, and our anxiety only grew. To distract myself from the worry, I threw myself even more into piano. Desperately, I kept hammering away at the keys, mastering Mussorgsky's Night on Bald Mountain, which I'd been practicing. The unsettling feel of the music matched the unease in my heart, and I was oddly drawn to it. I was particularly engrossed that day, completely forgetting that I was in the school's music room. I didn't even realize that a few classmates had come in and were listening to my solo performance. Wow, you're really good at the piano, Tom. The girls from my class were there, clapping their hands, the sound filling the music room. The sound of clapping hands echoed through the music room. I had intended to be alone, so I had exaggeratedly moved to the rhythm and made odd movements. Feeling embarrassed about it, I ended up giving a curt thank you in response. To me, it seemed like I was just trying to act cool, and my shame only grew. I worried if it showed on my face. Do you always play here? Yeah, almost every day. I'm the quiet type, not really fitting in with the class crowd. These moments of playing after school were the only times I felt some relief. Well, that's awesome. Can I come listen again tomorrow? Hearing those words, I was reminded of the first time I met Tom. I realized our meeting had also been because of the piano. The black and white keys had brought someone like me into someone else's orbit. Of course, you can. I was so happy, I almost cried as I replied. But then, what's this? The pook is getting carried away. My archenemy had appeared. Amelia from my class, along with her 3 lackeys, taunted me daily for being poor. Every day, those 3 hangers-on would join in and create a ruckus, squawking and screaming like it was their job. Why on earth is someone like you at this school? Having a has-been poor person around just brings down the whole vibe. Amelia jeered with a barbaric laugh. The girls who used to enjoy my piano playing had become completely subdued. I wondered who was really bringing down the mood. I fought this, but unfortunately, I didn't have the guts to say it out loud. Sorry, was all I could muster. The unrelenting ridicule was too much, and I left the music room. Wiping tears with the sleeve of my uniform, I ran all the way home to escape. Despite everything, I continued to play the piano every day. Amelia and her friends would always throw cold water on my efforts, but I couldn't give up the piano. With single-minded determination, no matter how much they interfered or what insults they hurled, I kept on hammering at the keys. Yet, my piano playing had changed more than I was aware. Ha ha, I was out of breath from playing so intensely. Sweat was beginning to seep all over my body. That was awesome today. Thanks. I couldn't take their words at face value. At some point, my reason for playing the piano shifted from love to a way to release the pressure of a cornered heart. It was a means of releasing the distortions of a mind compressed by a terrifying presence. In essence, it had become a form of escapism. I knew this wasn't good, but I didn't know any other way to clear the horrible feeling inside me. Here he goes again. Can't you read the room? Amelia's taunts grew worse as my mood fell. Day after day, and eventually, I stopped going to school. I wanted to play the piano. The only place to play was at school. But going there meant facing a barrage of insults. Caught in this nightmarish triangle, I was hit by an even greater despair. Honey, my father had become cold, covered with a cloth. My mother was clinging to his right arm, crying. Dad. Strangely, I didn't shed any tears. Instead, I felt an intense regret. The last time my dad had heard me play was when I was very young. I had never had the chance to show him how much better I'd gotten because I never participated in competitions. I just kept playing at school. I've improved a lot. I'm on a whole different level now. Despite all these thoughts, I never had the chance to show him. And that was incredibly frustrating. After my dad passed away, my mother and I moved in with her parents. Right after graduating from middle school, we headed to Germany. My grandfather, my mother's father, was half German and lived over there. My mother, a quarter German, was named Ellie. Hey there, welcome back, Rick. I'm back, Grandpa. One night, when I got home, I ran into my grandpa in the living room. He was watching TV while petting the dog. Did you go to that jazz club again today? Yep. Since coming here, I never enrolled in any educational institution. I just went from bar to bar around the neighborhood, showcasing my piano skills. I used the tips I got right there and somehow managed not to rely on my grandparents. Time flew by, and self-proclaimed pianist Rick became a 30-something. Now I'm back from Germany, settled down in the US. I kind of miss my hometown, so I rented a room in the same apartment I used to live in and started living alone. Even though I say I've settled, I jet set around the world whenever I have a spare moment. I meet all sorts of people, share perspectives, and get updated. With every encounter, I feel like I'm evolving, which is incredibly fascinating. Even with my performances, which I'm pretty confident about, traveling the world makes me realize I still have a long way to go. When I played on a street piano in Italy, a lanky old man showed up out of nowhere and casually began to play Schubert's Rollkönig, and my jaw just dropped. In a French tavern, while I was playing Ravel's Judo, a girl who looked to be in her teens asked to play a duet with me. It would be a good experience for someone like me who had always played solo. I readily agreed, but man, that girl was amazing. Instead of just following along, she actually led the way. Our first duet was a terrifyingly huge success, and the crowd went wild. That's how I continue to be tempered by the world, leveling up as a pianist. There have been plenty of challenges, but I really like the free life that could elevate me. This time I went to Austria. After my trip, I returned to the country and somehow managed to get back to my apartment from the airport with my heavy luggage. Wow, there's a pileup here. Looking at the mailbox, there was a massive amount of mail stuffed inside, including letters and whatnot. Since I had told the landlord I was going on an international trip, I figured there wouldn't be any need for extra worry. There was a time I forgot to inform him before heading abroad. The mail had piled up so much that the neighbors thought something might have happened and reported it to the police. When I got back, I got a talking to from the landlord, safe and sound. Well then, what kind of news do we have here? After carrying the luggage to my room, I went through the mail. Most of it was utility bills or flyers from the local supermarket. Huh, what's this? There was one envelope that was particularly lavish and flashy. Wedding invitation. Someone's getting hitched. I looked at the back of the envelope for the sender's name. Tom, Amelia. I see. Tom is the one tying the knot. I got a bit excited seeing the name of an old friend I hadn't seen in a while. We had talked about sending letters, but since the summer of our 9th grade, we had stopped sending them entirely. It's been over 10 years, but it seems he hasn't forgotten about me. I pulled out the invitation from the envelope. It was folded in half, and inside there was a section to indicate whether I would attend or not. Of course, I'll be attending. I brought over a pen, circled will attend. Above it, I added delighted to. I wrote my address, name, and a congratulatory message. 11 p.m. I'll have to send it back and call tomorrow. Closing the folded invitation, there was a handwritten message from Tom and his bride. Tom has had strong penmanship since we were kids in elementary school, and it looks like that hasn't changed. Right below, in the distinctive upward slanting script, there was a similar message. I read both, chuckled to myself, and decided to call it a night. The jet lag was hitting me a bit, but the fatigue was easily overcome. On the day of the wedding, when I arrived at the venue, it turned out to be an extremely famous upscale hotel. This was my first time attending such a posh and formal ceremony, and I was a bit nervous. Hey there, long time no see, Rick. While I was looking for my seat, I heard a voice from behind. Oh, Tom, congratulations on your wedding. Thanks, I'm glad you could make it. It had been a good 15 years since we last saw each other. We didn't bother with formalities and simply celebrated our reunion with a firm handshake. Next to him stood the bride, who looked at me with a bit of surprise. You became a bank president. Yeah, thankfully. That's amazing. Thank you. How about you? Weren't you in Germany for a while? Yeah, I left our local middle school and headed straight there. Ever since, I've just been living freely without pursuing further studies. I see. As we were catching up, a voice called out for Tom from a little distance away. Oops, excuse me. Tom looked over and gave a wave with his right hand as if to say catch you later. I don't know who it was, but he took off at a jog to say hello to another acquaintance. Yet, for some reason, the bride stayed behind, still looking at me. Rick, as in that Rick, the one who played the piano every day in the music room. Oh, yeah, that's me. Ha, you're a middle school dropout. That distinctive elongated inflection at the end of her sentences. The mocking choice of words. And then, the name Amelia on the invitation. I had my suspicions. The bride Amelia turned out to be the same Amelia who used to bully me back in middle school. Who would have thought we'd meet again after more than a decade? Just your presence makes our wedding cheap. Is that right? I'm sorry to have caused such a fuss. Hut, you feel sorry. Hut, well, it can't be helped that you are here today, but from here on out. At this moment, Amelia's face seemed somewhat more malevolent than the one I remembered. You low-educated trash should cut ties with my husband. Got it. Even though I had grown up, I was naturally infuriated by her words suggesting I sever ties with Tom. I couldn't remain as calm as before and retorted a bit. Tom has been my best buddy since elementary school, but do you really have the right to cut that bond? I do, because I'm his wife. I struggled to understand her reasoning. And just then, Tom came back. Sorry, Tom, I'm going to withdraw all my savings from the bank. I'll close that account too. What? Why? This is some kind of joke, right? Beside the astonished Tom, the bride was speechless. She didn't seem to comprehend what I was saying. No, your bride told me to cut ties with a middle school dropout. Huck, Amelia, What are you talking about? Because. It seemed she was thrown off by Tom's question. Having a fallen poor man around ruins the atmosphere. It'll affect your work too, won't it? She continued to scream hysterically, not caring who was watching. Hey, why did you even invite such a poor person to the wedding? Amelia, that's too much. Apologize to Rick. No, I'm not wrong. Sorry, it looks like I've caused a disturbance at your wedding. I turned my back on them and headed for the exit. Rick, wait, please Rick. Tom grabbed my arm after I had walked a few meters. He was pleading for a chance to talk. I wasn't angry with Tom. I decided to return following his lead. Sorry, Rick. Lift your head up, Tom. I'm the one who should apologize. I got too emotional. Meanwhile, the bride stood with her arms crossed, facing away. Amelia, listen to me. It's about how Rick and I met. When Tom said that, she only turned her gaze toward him. It's a story from when I was still in elementary school. He began to recount the story from 15 years ago as if it had happened just the other day. My parents were bureaucrats in the Treasury Department, really strict. It wasn't just about studying. There were so many do's and don'ts. As a result, I never had much in common with the other kids in class. I had a hard time fitting in. On the contrary, it seems that he was somewhat coerced into playing the violin. Like my experience with the piano, he had been made to play since before he even started elementary school. I hated those days so much. When I got home, I had to study and practice again under strict supervision. To escape, I started wandering aimlessly around the school for hours after school. This was around when both Tom and I were in the 6th grade. It was also the time when my dad's business failed, and we couldn't afford a piano at home anymore. The bride, who had been crossing her arms, was now listening intently to Tom's story. It was on one of those days, as I passed the music room, I heard Puppy Waltz being played inside. Tom was very curious about who was playing. He said it sounded like a performance far surpassing even the level of our music teachers. When I entered the music room, a grade schooler was playing. I was blown away. Sure, it's a piece that's easy for kids, but it wasn't just skillful. It really hit me in the heart. You could tell that the performer was thoroughly enjoying playing the piano. The bride's eyes were a little red. That was the day I met you, Rick. Your playing mended my nearly broken heart. Tom had seen my playing as one of the few comforts from the pressures of his parents. That's why he kept coming to the music room every day after that. You seemed to enjoy playing so much that I started to enjoy playing the violin. Those days I used to hate were completely transformed. So he became positive about taking the middle school entrance exams and aced them. It was a little lonely to part ways with Tom after getting into middle school, but knowing that my playing had been the foundation for him made me proud and happy at the same time. I'd been complimented on my playing before, but I never thought I'd actually saved someone. After hearing Tom's story, the bride, Amelia, was in tears. It turns out that the high school dropout and so-called poor guy she'd looked down upon was the one who had laid the foundation for her current husband. Whether she was feeling regret or gratitude, I couldn't tell. Amelia, you said it yourself, didn't you? During middle school, when you were going through a tough time, the sound of the piano comforted you. I was surprised by the story and looked at Amelia with wide eyes. Don't look at me. She blushed and seemed embarrassed. Maybe it's because we shared similar experiences that we got along so well. I've traveled the world and seen many coincidences, but a serendipitous meeting like this is quite rare. Who knew I'd played Cupid without even realizing it? Rick, Tom asked, looking a bit embarrassed. Right, he doesn't know yet. The thing is, Tom, yeah, I was surprised too when I came to the venue, but your wife, she's my middle school classmate. What? No wonder Tom was shocked. Faced with this astounding fact, all three of us could only laugh. After we had our fill of laughter, Amelia bowed her head to me. Her hair, which must have been set for the wedding, drooped towards the ground. "I'm sorry. I said some terrible things without knowing anything." "Whoa, hold on, Amelia." Tom looked impressed by her, but for me, it was an emergency. If a guest at a wedding made the main bride bow, it could turn into quite the awkward rumor. Not just for that, I also want to apologize for middle school. After Rick stopped coming to school, I felt regret. I wanted to apologize so badly that I went to your house after graduation, but you had already moved out by then. "All right, just lift your head up now." Amelia turned back to face me again. Her makeup had been ruined by tears. She seemed to need a touch-up before anyone else. Not to make excuses, but my family is pretty strict, you know. From what she told me, her family sounded pretty tough, too. The stress had been piling up, and she'd been taking it out on me, apparently. That nasty comment earlier was due to the values ingrained in her by her parents, who cared about nothing but educational pedigree. In fact, she had graduated from a prestigious university and was working at a top-tier company. "So, I'm really sorry," she apologized again. Amelia, once more, bowed her head to me. "Let's forget the past. Just make my best buddy, Tom, happy, will ya?" After their apologies, I felt my anger dissipate so much that I almost forgot what I was mad about. Then the wedding planner came over. It was time. I apologized to Amelia in return and encouraged her to go freshen up her makeup. "And Tom, about that thing, I've got it under control." "Yeah, I'm counting on you." I gave my best friend a thumbs up and took my seat. The wedding proceeded smoothly, and soon it was time for the entertainment after the bride's dress change. The relatives put on a splendid dance. After that, it was my turn to carry out the plan. I was led backstage to a dimly lit area where a piano awaited. Now, for the next act, we have the groom's best friend and a genius pianist, Rick's performance. After an over-the-top introduction, the spotlight was on me. The piece was Listily Bistraum. It was a piece I'd thought of playing at someone's wedding someday. I never imagined my first performance would be at my best buddy Tom's wedding. The nervousness was different from playing in competitions, jazz bars, or on the street. It felt like the first piece was over in an instant. After a brief pause of about 10 seconds, I placed my hands on the keys again. Simultaneously, Tom stood up. It was a plan only the planner and the two of us knew about. As everyone looked on in surprise, the groom took out a violin hidden under the table. We made eye contact to sync our timing and started the second piece, Elgar Solidamer. As I moved my fingers, memories of my travels flashed through my mind. Germany, England, Italy, France, Spain, Austria. The memories were too many to count. A lanky man who appeared out of nowhere. A girl I didn't know. Even after having played duets with so many people, today I was truly moved. The duet with Tom was more wonderful than any in my memory. The sound was perfectly in sync, playing off each other's nuances. The joy in the violin's melody was palpable. I felt a warmth in my eyes as I played. The audience, including the bride, were all in tears. Oh, what a perfect performance. A promise of 15 years. The duet between pianist Rick and violinist Tom, now a reality. As the last note and its resonance faded, applause filled the room. Once it died down, Tom took the mic. Rick and I had been best friends since elementary school. We both played instruments even back then, but I wasn't a match for the genius pianist Rick. I was asked to do a duet, but I thought I didn't measure up and put it off until now. Back then, Tom wasn't enjoying the violin at all. On the other hand, I've always loved and played the piano. Perhaps he felt a gap there. I'm so glad that we could achieve that duet here today," he said. The venue was enveloped in applause once again. The talk was supposed to end here, but let me introduce him, Rick. He continued, embarking on an unplanned tale. He's Rick, my best bud. As I mentioned earlier, this guy's a piano prodigy. He's got a YouTube channel where he posts his performances, and he's quite the big shot, with over 1 million subscribers. Everyone, do yourselves a favor and check out his YouTube. As Tom explained, my YouTube channel, thankfully, has been viewed by many. I post one-off performances and clips of my international concerts. To add more, lately I've been dabbling in composing, with numerous commissions coming my way. Some of my works have even become worldwide hits. It's a bit crass to talk money, but there's about $700 million in the bank account at Tom's bank. Not that I live a life of luxury, I live quite comfortably. I plan to keep jet-setting around the world. Let's give him a big round of applause, Tom prompted, turning all the applause and eyes in the hall towards me. Without getting overly excited, I just gracefully bowed, as a pianist would. Since around the summer before my junior year of high school, anonymous letters began to appear in my desk and locker. They were simple: "Watch out, the tough guys are targeting you. Be on your guard against shakedowns or worse." These were tip-offs, written in distinctive rising handwriting. It was around that time that Amelia started showing up in the music room. There was something I always found odd. Although she bullied me daily, she never once interrupted my playing. She'd always wait until I'd finished a piece, shared the afterglow with the audience, and then she'd appear. It seemed like after enjoying the performance, she was quick to send me on my way home. If that's the case, then she could very well be the one behind the letters. Thinking back, the handwriting was identical to that on the wedding invitations. I tried contacting Amelia a few times to confirm, but she persistently played dumb. I figured it wasn't good to pry too much, so I kept it to myself and silently appreciated it. The wedding ended and people started leaving. While the parents were exchanging goodbyes, I was approached by a bunch of bored kids. "That piano was awesome. Hey, thanks. Played that song." Upon further inquiry, that one turned out to be the theme song of a certain demon-slaying movie. I played just the chorus, and they were thrilled. That kicked off a flurry of requests. It tunes from the movie about a fake family, cursed objects, and more, and it turned into quite the riot. Eventually, the bustle settled down, and the newlyweds approached me. "Rick, thanks so much for today." "Same to you, thanks. But hey, about that thing with the bank account closing, is it true?" Tom said that, and Amelia looked at me apologetically. "Nah, of course not. I was just being emotional. Sorry for spouting nonsense." "That's a relief," Tom said with a relieved smile. "Right, about that money, though. Yay. I'm planning to use that $700 million to create a music studio. Not a formal school, but a place to foster opportunities for engagement with music. I aim to provide support so that nobody has to give up on music because of financial constraints." When I opened up about my dream, 2 friends were on board. It seems they related to my take on music and were keen to help with setting up and running the place. Several days after the ceremony, I got a call from Tom. "Appreciate what you did the other day. Found out today that Amelia's expecting. That might have been why she was so off-kilter then. Hope you can cut her some slack." As I was prepping for my next journey, I shot back a message. "Congrats, buddy. To think my best pal's going to be a dad is quite something. Don't fret about the other day, all is well. On another note, you've got to check out the video dropping today." That evening, my channel saw a new video titled "For My Dear Friends Go Live." It's a medley of dreams of love and love's greeting, the same pieces I played at the wedding. It's also meant to keep the memory of that moment from fading. I considered posting a duet with Tom, but I've decided to keep that now mythic performance to myself. A person's true nature can't be sized up by diplomas or just by what they say. I might have just a middle school education, but I see myself as someone who's made it in their own right. The same goes for Amelia. Judging by how she was with me back in middle school, you'd think she was quite the piece of work. But in reality, sending those anonymous letters or trying to get me home safe before trouble hit shows she has a big heart, albeit her awkward way of showing it. I've come to appreciate what matters in life by engaging with folks across the globe. Some places might not boast the finest education systems. That doesn't mean the people from there are all bad eggs. The essence is deeper down. What you believe and what you think. That's the key. I intend to express my true self through my piano playing. And I hope that, one day, it might just be someone's salvation.